Hey guys, this is Rainbows here, casting Game 2 of the Gosu Cup Finals between HayprO and LucifroN on Blistering Sands. We can see that LucifroN is yellow Terran in the 2 o'clockish position, and his opponent HayprO, blue Zerg, at 7 o'clock. And if you haven't watched Game 1, go do that right now, because I'm about to spoil the crap out of it. The last game, we saw HayprO go for kind of a relatively fast expansion, while his opponent went for a very fast tech lab, just got out 3 Reapers, and did a whole bunch of damage to that fast expansion, and really put HayprO just a little bit behind. And he took advantage of the fact that HayprO was a little bit behind, and he just built up an army, and in the meantime HayprO decided that he wanted to tech Mutalisks, so he just had a bunch of Speedlings to defend. He really needed to get Speedlings to deal with the Reapers. So he had Speedlings against a relatively large Hellion Marauder force. That Hellion Marauder force was just able to wipe out both of his hatcheries right as the Mutas popped, and the Mutas were able to do a whole bunch of damage to that Hellion Marauder force and wipe it out, but by the time they came into a counterattack, LucifroN had already gotten up turrets and had already gotten up a Thor. And that's just a really classic example of Zerg dynamics and the way Zerg work. And the way Zerg work is when you tech switch, you get this really explosive pop where you can spend all of your larvae. We can see that LucifroN is building a barracks, so in such a position that he can get a tech lab very easily again. So we might see that again. HayprO is going for a relatively late opening this game. But when Zerg go for a tech switch, what they do is they just save up a bunch of larvae and they save up a bunch of money, and right as soon as that production building finishes, they make, like, boom, 7 Mutalisks. And we saw HayprO do a very good job of that. But what LucifroN did was LucifroN was able to capitalize on that, because he was like, hey, you know, my opponent is a little bit behind because of this Reaper harass, so I can continue to build up an army, and I forced him to get Speedlings, and he's just going to have a bunch of Speedlings. So if I get a couple of Hellions just to cover some Marauders, the Marauders will be able to do a massive amount of damage to any static defenses, and the Hellions will be able to take out Speedlings, and I can just rush in and crush my opponent and not even worry about Mutalisks, because he's got all of these resources and larvae that he's saving up for that pop. And LucifroN did, again, just a very nice job of capitalizing on that timing where his Zerg opponent was sitting around and waiting, essentially, to build units. We can see that HayprO is going to scout in the correct direction, because this is a 2-player map. LucifroN has already scouted. LucifroN does know that HayprO is going for a very fast expansion that looks like a, I'm going to say, 14 hatch, 13 pool. I wasn't actually watching the supply, but it's something around that vague timing. And we can see that LucifroN actually has 2 gases already. He's got his orbital command plenty early, and that will pay for itself momentarily. And he's just going to go straight Reapers again, because he saw how effective Reapers were last game. HayprO's just tooling around with this drone in this little weeded off area by the destructible rocks. Reapers are not going to be quite as strong in this map, just because there's not quite as much cliffage to abuse, but there is this entrance to the main right here, and there is this entrance to the main right here, and natural is a little bit weird, and I'm actually getting messaged. So I'm going to respond to that with a heart and hope that he doesn't talk that much. HayprO is getting a gas. That's actually really late on 24. So he's going to be very late with Lair or any tech, but he's going to do fine, because LucifroN is spending so much gas on Reapers. We are going to see these Reapers again just do a bunch of damage, I'm sure we'll see, but this map is just not quite as good. This Reaper only gets a single kill before being driven off that cliff, and because the Reaper doesn't have vision up on that cliff, it's not going to do anywhere as well as it would have done on Kulas. I always get that map wrong. It's Kulas, but I want to say koala, like koala bear. LucifroN's just coming around with these Reapers and doing a little bit of damage, just picking off a drone. It takes 3 Reaper shots to kill a drone, so these 2 Reapers are going to kill drones very quickly. But this Queen is just going to chase them off. 2 Reapers is not enough to deal with the Queen. The Queen is relatively fast on creep. It's very slow off of creep, but it's fast enough on creep that he's going to be able to keep these Reapers from doing too much damage. HayprO is... I'm going to pop up the production tab. I kind of feel naked with that. HayprO is not going for Reaper speed, and he hasn't... We're going to see either speed... I'm sorry. Zergling speed. We're going to either see speed or a lair right here, and this is going to be a really interesting choice to see whether or not he's just going to go for Hydras or Mutas, or if he's going to try to stick around on Zerglings for a little bit and ensure that he can do some damage. Some Marauders coming up for LucifroN, but there is a drone still in his base, and the drone does see this factory with a reactor already. Just pumping out Hellions to deal with any Zerglings, so we're probably not going to see Zergling speed. We're probably going to see a lair as soon as HayprO realizes how much gas... No, we are going to see Zergling speed. I take that back. He's getting up a little bit of static defenses, just so that he can try to hold that early expansion a little bit better, which is a very good choice from him. And we do see concussive shells coming up for LucifroN, a very standard choice. Now, I do want to touch on the concussive shells timing versus the Stimpak timing a little bit. I'm not the greatest Terran player, and I'm sure LucifroN could kick the crap out of me in a best of anything. But I would really like to see him get Stim before concussive shells, just because concussive shells is so fast. And if he's going for any sort of a barracks heavy build, which he is doing, he's building 2 barracks right now, then he could finish Stimpak and then finish concussive shells and have them actually line up at about the same time if he just committed a little bit more resources to get Stimpak first. Stimpak is a little bit more expensive, but it's I think it's a more important upgrade when both of you are committing to a fight. When you're not committing to a fight, concussive shells is amazing, just because it enables your marauders to kite around, it enables your marauders to do amazingly disproportionate amounts of damage. But if the opponent is just charging all of these units straight into you, as is going to be the case when HayprO just has a billion speedlings and some roaches or hiders or mutalisks or whatever he wants to do, and these clashes happen, when your opponent is actually itching for a fight, concussive shells doesn't really do that much. Concussive shells kind of helps your marauders run away from slow units, like maybe non-speed roaches, but Stimpak would just do so much more in enabling you to actually carry the day. We can see that LucifroN is moving out with a bunch of those Hellions that he's been producing out of this reactor factory, and he's just going to chase away a bunch of speedlings, but not really go for that much damage. He knows that HayprO is a quality opponent, and HayprO does have some form of defenses up in his base that's going to be able to carry the day against Hellions. Hellions do not do that much damage to buildings. They do like 8 damage. And it does look like HayprO is going for the exact same build that he went last game. He's going for a Spire and a Baneling Nest at the exact same time. And hopefully we will see LucifroN realize this, and LucifroN will just move in with a bunch of units and just slam his opponent and punish him for really waiting for that Spire. Punish him during this timing where he's just sitting around and not really building that many combat units. We can see he's not building that many right now. He's not even making Banelings. As I say that, of course, he's making 5 drones and 2 overloads. So he's actually droning up, which is very, very deadly. If his opponent realizes this, if LucifroN does realize this, LucifroN, though, is very content just to sit back, and if we pop on over to the income tab, we can see that LucifroN is slightly behind on harvesters, but he does have mules, and he does have 2 orbital commands, so he's got mules out of 2 and not just 1, so it's relatively even. Evo chamber down for HayprO, and that's going to enable him to get anti-air or upgrades. He doesn't really need anti-air with Mutalisks, unless his opponent gets some really balls to the walls of Viking build, and I'm sure he would have scouted that. You can see that HayprO is coming on, and he does see that there is an armory up, so he does know that some sort of armory required thing is going, either advanced infantry upgrades, and it's really a little bit early in the game for that, or a Thor. Stimpak is finally coming up for LucifroN, and Stimpak is just now finishing, which is, I mean, he's had 2 tech labs. If he had started Stimpak, and then as soon as he had a second tech lab, immediately started concussive shells, they probably have both finished already by now, and he would be much more comfortable moving out. But you can see that Mutalisks are coming up for HayprO already, and HayprO is actually just going to go ahead and take out these structural rocks so he can take a third, and this third is not terribly difficult to defend. You can see that the natural path of attack for LucifroN is just kind of across the middle of the map, just across right here, and if HayprO just kind of defends this area, and it's going to be very easy for him to defend a wide area just because he has Mutalisks, then this expansion is going to be relatively safe for him to take. We can see him just coming in doing a little bit of Mutalisk stress, and I'm really worried about that Thor. That dropship almost does go down with Thor in it, and if the dropship does die with a Thor in it, then the Thor will die. We can see that LucifroN's had some very nice macro here, keeping this Thor alive, and he's pulling off SCVs. Thor almost going down, but it's going to get picked up by a dropship just in time. Thor does go down, so HayprO has 0 anti-air, another Thor coming out, but there are no missile turrets out. I do not believe there's an engineering bay. No, there is no engineering bay, so these Mutalisks are going to be able to do an absolutely disproportionate amount of damage. LucifroN is going to just take advantage of the fact that his opponent, he knows that his opponent doesn't have that big of a ground army because he's got all these Mutalisks and just move out. These Mutalisks are going to be able to do damage to these Marauders, but these Marauders have 125 health. It's a lot of health, especially when you consider that Mutalisks do about 10 damage. And HayprO's first few Hellions are getting pushed off by the Spine Crawlers. I am sorry that I did not see this, but we can see that these Marauders are going to do a lot of damage. But it does look like the Mutalisks have done their job, and they have whittled down the forces of HayprO, or LucifroN, as they move across the map, and these Speedlings are going to do more than enough of a job of taking down those Marauders very quickly. Speedlings just do not anywhere near as much damage as in Brood War, but they do a bunch of damage when compared to Mutalisks cost-wise, just because you get a bunch of speedlings. LucifroN is just going to go ahead and construct a hasty wall right here so that he can hold off these speedlings, but that wall is not going to do anywhere near enough. There's far too many speedlings, far too many Mutalisks, and this Thor is going to go down. Bunches of Zerglings on a Thor does not bode well for it at all, and we do see a GG out of LucifroN. The series is tied 1-1. Again, this is a best of 5, so we do have several more games to look forward to. This is Rainbows casting Game 2 of the Gosu Cup, LucifroN versus HayprO. Series tied 1-1. I'm repeating myself a bunch, but yeah, we'll be casting the next game immediately.